Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We turn now to A Clear Midnight. This is poem 22 of the 22 of From Noon to Starry Night. This is the last poem of the cluster, and as we've pointed out so regularly in our study of Leaves of Grass, when you find these clusters, it's always interesting to see what poem is it that Whitman will end with. He almost always has a powerful last poem at the end of the cluster. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt, our playlist, and then you've been annotating from the very first invitational word come all the way up to and including a set of introductory comments for Starry Night, and then we just finished with Majestic Days. Now, our Nortons that we like to resort to as background information will tell us that this poem first appeared in Leaves of Grass 1881. Its manuscript, reproduced in Furness, carries the manuscript note, quote, "for end of poem," end quote. The last revised manuscript draft is written on the back of a letter dated December 2nd, 1880. Now, many scholars have pointed out that most of the poetry written by Whitman after the American Civil War ended up being short, and it's going to have a certain kind of interesting use of word choice and diction here. Notice this antiquated thy and thou and that kind of thing. And now we're back to Homer's Odyssey as well as Plato's Phaedo as we finish From Noon to Starry Night. And notice we began with referencing of the sun, we end with referencing of the midnight. You'll remember clear, first used in starting from Paumanok 12. And midnight used in Song of Myself 33. The echoes go back there. The poem. This is thy hour, O soul, thy free flight into the wordless, away from books, away from art, the day erased, the lesson done, thee fully forth emerging, silent, gazing, pondering the themes thou lovest best, night, sleep, death, and the stars. Now, I find this to be an amazing poem. It is of interest that Clear Midnight doesn't actually get mentioned in the poem. And I love that it's a clear midnight, and we finish, of course, with the viewing of the stars. One of the things we learn in our study of Leaves of Grass, and we've said this before, is that there is this dynamic use of from the simple to the complex. We start with these images from nature, and then obviously we've got physical, and we end up with something metaphysical. It's wonderful the way we do this. Notice he will already begin to gesture towards the last three clusters, and as we're going to point out, the final 106 poems of Leaves of Grass will all be gesturing towards death, towards the end. As we've said a number of times, when we were children and we were at the park swinging, and the adult in our life said, you have to go to the van. And we said, I don't want to go to the van. And the adult said, no, you have to go to the van, honey. You can't stay at the park and swing forever. They were teaching us this lesson that is provided for us here. And that is, sooner or later, you got to go to the van. You ain't met no 200-year-old people. And what does that mean? Well, it means you only get to swing at the park for a short time, and then you got to go bye-bye. That is the truth of the Beowulf Part 3 Dragon episode, as we talked about it at learnstrong.net. And here, notice, this is thy hour, O soul. Thy free flight. Free flight is used one time only in all Leaves of Grass, and it's right here. And obviously, the idea of flight takes us back to any number of moments earlier. Dalliance of Eagles comes to mind, the idea of flight and freedom. Into the flight, into the wordless. We've talked about this translinguistic trend. The Tao that can be spoken of is not the true Tao. The opening lines of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching comes to mind. We're going to fly. Where? Away from books. Remember Song of the Open Road 14. The book, leave the book on the shelf unopened. Away from art. The day erased. You'll remember erased from Faces Part 3. The lesson done. Back again to Song of the Open Road 14. Mind not the cry of the teacher. The lesson done. The fully forth emerging. Again, think about the power of Leaves of Grass and this idea of the emergence and his view of evolution as transcending and including. And then he'll say it. Silent, which will take us to the stars, obviously, as the last word. Gazing will take us to the learned astronomer. Pondering, how many times has he used that word in Leaves of Grass? The themes thou lovest best. In other words, this whole product of Leaves of Grass has in some ways been a meditation on the themes that he loves best. Well, what are those themes? Well, night, we heard this in in sleepers. The next word is sleep. That won't shock us. But then the third word is death. And then the stars. That is to say, one has one's death, and then there's what comes after. And of course, this takes us to Plato's Phaedo, a text that Whitman loved greatly. At 2a, well, I think his argument here is that the greatest journey is the one within, not the one without. Although the passage, as we saw in passage 2, the passage sail forth, let's go, let's go. The passage is always two parts. It's always an outward and an inward journey, as we learned obviously from our Homer's Odyssey. At 2b, I love the rhythm of this poem. I mean, just listen to the iambic ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum of line 2. Away from books, away from art, the day erased, the lesson done. See, Whitman can play that game just like any other great poet. He just doesn't do it consistently because that's not how we talk, right? He wants to capture actual linguistic nuances that are more authentic. At 3a, I mentioned Plato's Phaedo. I mean, think about it. There is Plato, or there is Socrates, with his hemlock shake waiting, and all he has to do is drink it. But before he does, he's got to laugh a little bit. Of course, his students are all crying. It's like, why are you guys crying? What is the deal? Did you expect me to live forever? I'm an old man. I got to go bye-bye. I got to go on my next journey. What are you talking about? Dude, you're about to drink hemlock and die. No. That's what my body is going to do. But I wonder what my soul is going to do. Notice here in this volume, soul capitalized. Oh, soul. The other 3b or 3a that we can think about, any number of classic texts of the romantic transcendentalist tradition. Tintern Abbey comes to mind of Wordsworth. All of the great essays of Emerson come to mind, especially Oversoul. Think about Thoreau. Think about those final lines. If you build castles in the air, that's where they should be. Now put the foundations under them. It's a compelling way to think about how he ends this amazing cluster from noon to starry night. And finally, at 3b, how we own this. Well, are you excited for your next journey, whatever that's going to be? The journey of your life that culminates, obviously, with your passing, and yet it's really your going, isn't it, as this poem suggests? Journey to the stars, if you will. Well, we've finished now the 22 poems in this cluster. What for you is your favorite of the 22? And now we've only got 3 more clusters left. Those of you who have actually read every poem with me from the beginning of the first word come as an invitation word, we now have 17 songs of parting as a cluster, 58 poems of Stanza 70, and then finally we have the final 31 poems of Goodbye My Fancy for a final 106 poems. How is it possible that we are now at the last 106 poems of Leaves of Grass? I welcome you back, and we will pick up with the first of those 3 last clusters of Leaves of Grass. Thank you.